There are moments in life when a single encounter at the most ordinary place changes everything forever. For Captain Stephen Owen, that moment came on a humid Tuesday afternoon at Dallas-Fort Worth International Airport when, as he was adjusting his captain's insignia in the mirror of Gate C-17's crew lounge, he heard the uneven footsteps echoing across the jet bridge outside. The rhythm was determined, painful, and completely wrong for someone so young. A gate that spoke of crushed dreams in a place where thousands of travelers walked with purpose toward their destinations. For Vivian Campbell, 17 years old, the moment that changed everything arrived quietly. It was the strange sensation of someone actually seeing her struggle instead of politely looking away, asking a question that cut through 2 years of medical jargon and specialist consultations. Does it hurt more when you're trying to prove something, or when you've given up? No clinical assessment, no condescending sympathy, just a simple question that somehow reached past her carefully constructed armor. But before hope was restored, there had been tragedy. There had been guilt. There had been countless nights when a grandmother wondered whether love expressed through pressure had destroyed the very person she cherished most, when even millions of dollars and the country's finest orthopedic surgeons had proven utterly powerless to heal what was really broken. This is the story of a widowed pilot carrying his own unhealed wounds, of a billionaire grandmother bearing the unbearable weight of blame, and of a young athlete who had learned to accept that some dreams, once shattered, can never be rebuilt. This is the story of how a single father with no medical degree accomplished something that luxury clinics, experimental procedures, and elite specialists could not, because he understood that fixing someone's body means nothing if you haven't first understood what their heart is trying to tell you. And it all began with a very simple question. Does it hurt more when you're trying to prove something, or when you've given up? But before that question was ever asked, let me tell you about a man no one would have expected to change anything. Stephen was not always a captain going through the motions of life in a fog of grief. When he was younger, he and his wife Sarah used to sit in the cockpit during his training flights, her hand on his shoulder as he practiced approaches into regional airports, talking about the day when they'd raise their daughter Emma to believe that ordinary people could accomplish extraordinary things simply by paying attention to what others missed. But when Sarah was diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer, every certainty shattered. On the morning after her funeral, Stephen sat at the kitchen table holding 6-year-old Emma, staring at his wife's final journal entry lying open before him. Promise me you'll keep looking for the good you can do. Don't just survive. Live. He kept flying because it was all he knew how to do. He showed up for every shift, executed every procedure flawlessly, raised Emma with quiet devotion. But inside, he was hollowed out, moving through life like a perfectly functioning machine with no soul left inside it. Every evening after Emma went to bed, Stephen opened Sarah's old medical journals, not because he hoped to reverse time, but because he believed that understanding why he couldn't save the person he loved most might somehow make the loss bearable. He studied anatomy, physiology, rehabilitation science. Not for any purpose, just to feel close to the questions she'd asked in those final months. Why does this hurt? What's really broken? How do we fix what medicine can't reach? He had no idea those questions would be tested so soon. And he never imagined that the answer would appear on an ordinary Tuesday afternoon, limping across a tarmac at DFW Airport, pulling him into a journey that would finally teach him what Sarah had been trying to tell him all along. That the good we can do isn't always the lives we save. Sometimes it's simply the courage to ask the question no one else thinks to ask. Hello everyone, before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never get to miss our channel new stories. It is quick, free, and best way to support us in bringing more interesting stories. Your support means the world to us and motivate us to create more good stories. Tell us where you are watching from, your country, city, so we can know how far our stories goes. Thank you. Let's begin the story. Stephen Owen had been flying the same routes for American Airlines for 17 years, and somewhere along the way, he'd stopped noticing the sky. Gate assignments, pre-flight checklists, hydraulic pressure readings, fuel calculations, these were the rhythms that structured his days now, predictable and safe in their technical precision. His colleagues respected him for never missing a detail, never cutting corners, never letting emotion compromise judgment. What they didn't know was that perfection had become his hiding place. 3 years ago, when Sarah died in the hospice room with afternoon light streaming through half-closed blinds, she'd squeezed his hand with what little strength remained and made him promise something impossible. Don't just survive our loss, Stephen. Live. Help people. That's how you'll honor me. He'd nodded through tears, meaning every word. But keeping a promise to the dead turns out to be harder than any flight through turbulence. He'd met Sarah on a Boston to Dallas flight 12 years before that, back when he was a nervous first officer, and she was the flight attendant who brought him coffee during the pre-departure chaos and said, "Relax, Captain. The plane knows what it's doing even if you're still learning." 6 months later, they were married. Emma arrived 2 years after that, and for a decade, life felt like something he'd been specifically designed for. Husband, father, pilot, all the pieces fitting together perfectly. Then the diagnosis came. Stage 3 breast cancer, aggressive, unforgiving. Stephen took emergency leave, became expert in oncology terminology that meant nothing in the end. 2 years of treatments, surgeries, hope collapsing into acceptance. Sarah fought with the same determination she'd brought to everything, but some battles can't be won through strength of will alone. Now, every night after Emma went to sleep, Stephen sat at the kitchen table reading medical journals he'd subscribed to after the funeral. Oncology, pathology, pain management. Still trying to understand what he couldn't fix. Still trying to make sense of the mathematics of loss. Emma watched her father fade in slow motion, and it terrified her more than losing her mother had. At least her mother had been present until the end. Her father was technically alive but emotionally gone, a pilot flying on autopilot through his own life. Jenny Campbell had built Campbell Tech Solutions from a garage startup into a cybersecurity empire worth $2.4 billion, but she couldn't solve the problem that mattered most. Forbes had called her the grandmother who built an empire, and the headline sat framed in her River Oaks estate office, a monument to everything she'd accomplished and everything it had cost. Vivian came to her at age 4 after the accident. Jenny's son Marcus and his wife Claire, killed instantly when a semi-jackknifed it on I-45 during a rainstorm. Jenny, who'd spent Marcus's childhood building her company, missing recitals and baseball games for board meetings and investor pitches, saw Vivian as a second chance. This time, she promised herself she'd be present. This time, she'd get it right. But presence for Jenny looked like control. Elite youth sports programs from age 5. Private coaches for track and field. Nutritionists, sports psychologists, biomechanics specialists. By 15, Vivian was nationally ranked in the 200 meters and long jump, with Olympic trials trajectory that made college recruiters circle like sharks. Jenny attended every meet, screaming instructions from the sideline with the same intensity she'd once brought to quarterly earnings calls. The injury happened at Texas State Championships 2 years ago. Vivian in lane 4, running the 200-meter final, Jenny's voice cutting through the crowd noise. "Faster. Push harder. Don't let her pass you." Vivian, desperate to please the only parent she had left, attempted an explosive acceleration her 17-year-old body wasn't biomechanically ready for. The sound of her knee giving out was audible even over the crowd, a wet pop that made nearby spectators gasp. Complete ACL tear. MCL damage. Meniscus shredded. Vivian screaming on the track as Jenny ran toward her, already mentally cataloging which specialists to call, which hospitals had the best orthopedic surgeons, how much money it would take to fix this. $3.2 million later, Jenny had her answer. All the money in the world couldn't repair what was really broken. Dr. Patricia Hendricks at UT Southwestern performed the initial surgery, technically flawless. 6 months of intensive physical therapy at the most prestigious sports medicine clinic in Dallas. When progress stalled, Jenny flew them to hospital for special surgery in New York for a second opinion. Then experimental stem cell treatment in Switzerland. Custom orthotic devices from German biomechanics specialists who'd worked with Olympic athletes. Every procedure, every treatment, every cutting-edge intervention money could buy. Vivian could walk now, but with a pronounced limp. Any attempt to jog triggered severe pain, and something worse, psychological panic that no physical therapy could touch. The Stanford track scholarship offer had been quietly withdrawn. Other programs stopped calling. The recruiting window that only opens once in an athlete's life had closed while Vivian was still learning to climb stairs without crying. Northwestern accepted her on academic merit, heavily influenced by Jenny's 7-figure donation to their new athletic facility. Vivian would start in the fall, studying something she hadn't chosen, living a life that felt like compensation for dreams that had died on a track in Austin. They lived in the same house now, but inhabited different planets of grief and guilt. Vivian was polite, distant, going through motions. Jenny worked obsessively, still trying to solve an equation that had no solution. How much money does it take to buy back time, to undo words shouted in ambition, to repair a relationship fractured by impossible expectations? Every morning, Jenny woke at 5 a.m. with the same thought. Faster. Push harder. The last words her granddaughter heard before her future shattered. The words that played on loop in both their minds, an accusation that no amount of wealth could silence. Tuesday afternoon at DFW Terminal D carried the particular exhaustion of completed routines. Stephen's Boston flight had landed 20 minutes early, and he had 90 minutes before the Phoenix departure. His phone buzzed with Emma's text. "Dad, can we talk tonight?" "Really talk?" He noted the message, planning to respond properly later, and headed toward the crew lounge with his carry-on. The pilot's habit of observation never really turns off. Stephen registered gate numbers, passenger flow patterns, the slight hydraulic whine from a jet bridge that needed maintenance. Then he noticed the commotion near the private aviation entrance. A sleek Gulfstream G650 with Campbell Tech Solutions, emblazoned on the fuselage, ground crew positioning stairs, a woman in expensive business attire directing operations with the impatience of someone accustomed to efficiency. Then he saw the girl, 17, maybe 18, athletic build, moving across the tarmac with a gait that made Stephen stop walking. It wasn't just the limp, he'd seen plenty of passengers with injuries. It was the 7-degree lean to compensate, the way her shoulders tensed before each step, the micro-hesitation that suggested she was negotiating with her own body before trusting it with weight. She wasn't limping because of pain. She was limping because she was terrified of triggering pain. The difference might seem subtle to most people, but to Stephen it read like an instrument panel showing pre-stall conditions. All the mechanical systems functioning, but the pilot's inputs creating the problem. He should keep walking. Not his business. Running late. But something about the girl's determined expression, the way she held her head high while her body betrayed her with every step, reminded him achingly of Emma. Same age, same hidden pain, same refusal to let anyone see how much it cost to keep moving forward. Keep looking for the good you can do. Sarah's voice in his memory, clear as the day she'd said it. Stephen adjusted his course toward the private gate. "Excuse me," he said, approaching the woman and girl. "I'm Captain Owen. I apologize for the intrusion, but I couldn't help noticing your gait." The older woman's expression shifted instantly to defensive annoyance. "I appreciate your concern, Captain, but my granddaughter has been seen by the best specialists in the world." "I'm sure she has, ma'am. And I'm not a doctor." Stephen kept his voice gentle, non-threatening. "But I am a pilot, and we're trained to read movement, balance, weight distribution. And what I'm seeing isn't physical limitation, it's anticipatory compensation." The girl looked up for the first time, really seeing him. "What do you mean?" Stephen met her eyes. "Does it hurt more when you're trying to prove something, or when you've given up?" The question landed like a physical blow. Vivian froze, tears welling up instantly. The grandmother stared at him in stunned silence. "How?" Vivian's voice broke. "How did you know?" "Because that's how I walked for 2 years after my wife died," Stephen said quietly. "Like every step might break something inside me. And the thing is, no doctor could fix that. Because the injury wasn't in my legs." He explained briefly, the way Vivian was compensating not because of current pain, but because of the memory of pain, the fear of rangery creating a feedback loop that her body had learned to perform automatically. It was like a pilot overcorrecting for turbulence that wasn't there anymore, creating instability through the very actions meant to prevent it. Jenny's skepticism was palpable. "Are you suggesting you could help where specialists couldn't?" "I'm suggesting that maybe she needs someone to ask what she needs, not what the scans show." Vivian turned to her grandmother. "Grandma, please. Just let him look at the reports. What could it hurt?" Jenny studied Stephen for a long moment, his worn pilot's uniform, his calloused hands, his eyes that carried their own unmistakable grief. "Captain Owen, we're flying to Houston for another consultation. Why don't you send me your contact information?" I'll think about it." Stephen provided his email, then said gently to Vivian, "Whatever happens, I hope you find your way back to running. Not for anyone else. For yourself." The Houston specialist delivered the familiar verdict. "Structurally, the knee is fine. This is likely permanent functional limitation." That night, in a hotel room overlooking downtown Houston, Vivian made her decision and wrote an email she'd never thought she'd send. At midnight in his Dallas apartment, Stephen read it with Sarah's photo looking back at him from the desk. You saw something in 2 minutes that doctors haven't seen in 2 years. My grandmother thinks I should stay with proven specialists. But I think you're the first person who's asked me what I want. Will you help me? Stephen whispered to the photograph. Okay, Sarah. I hear you. I'll try. 3 days later, Stephen pulled his 10-year-old Honda Civic through the gates of Jenny Campbell's Highland Park mansion, past landscaping that probably cost more than his annual salary. The house rose before him like a monument to everything wealth could build and nothing it could heal. Jenny met him in a study lined with awards and framed Forbes covers. You have 1 hour to convince me this isn't a waste of time, Captain Owen. Stephen spent 40 minutes reviewing 2 years of medical records, surgical reports from Dr. Hendricks, PT notes from 6 different therapists, imaging studies that showed a knee rebuilt to textbook perfection. Finally, he looked up. Every specialist has treated the injury, he said quietly. No one has treated the athlete. Jenny's expression hardened. I don't understand. Your granddaughter's knee is structurally sound. The problem is she doesn't trust her body anymore. And based on these notes, I think there's a reason why. Stephen paused, choosing words carefully. Can you tell me about the circumstances when the injury occurred? What are you implying, Captain? Vivian's voice cut through the tension, quiet but certain. He's asking if you pushed me too hard. And the answer is yes. The silence that followed felt like a held breath. I wasn't trying to win that race, Grandma, Vivian continued, tears streaming now. I was trying to make you proud. When I heard you yelling, I pushed past every limit my body was telling me not to cross. The injury happened because I was more afraid of disappointing you than hurting myself. Jenny's composure shattered. She covered her face with hands that had signed billion-dollar deals but couldn't shield her from this truth. I know. God, Vivian, I know. And I've been trying to fix it ever since, but nothing works because I can't undo what I did. Maybe you're not supposed to undo it, Stephen said gently. Maybe you're both supposed to learn to move forward from it. How? Jenny's voice broke. How do we do that? By letting Vivian remember why she loved running in the first place. Before the pressure. Before the expectations. Before the injury. Stephen proposed 3 weeks, not as her doctor, but as someone who understood what it meant to be afraid that moving forward meant leaving someone behind. Jenny looked confused. Leaving someone behind? So Stephen told them about Sarah, the cancer that had taken her too young. The 2 years he'd spent walking through life like every forward step was a betrayal of her memory. Emma's words that finally broke through. Mom wouldn't want you to stop living. She'd want you to live more. For both of you. He turned to Vivian. I think you're afraid that if you run without pain, you'll prove your grandmother was right to push you. And if you never run again, you'll prove she destroyed you. Either way, she wins and you lose. He paused. The only way forward is to run for yourself. Jenny agreed to 3 weeks with conditions. Stephen would work under Dr. Hendricks' oversight. Any sign of brain injury would end the trial immediately. Stephen accepted without hesitation. I'm not here to fight the medical establishment. I'm here to help Vivian remember who she is. At the door, Vivian stopped him. Thank you for seeing me. Not my injury. Me. That's what my wife used to do, Stephen said. See people really see them. She taught me that everyone has their own instrument panel. You just have to learn to read it. From the study window, Jenny watched his Honda disappear down the tree-lined street. A realization settled over her like morning light. He doesn't want my money. He wants to honor his wife. And maybe that's what I need to do too. Honor my granddaughter, not try to fix her. Emma arrived with Stephen for the first session, 15 years old, and carrying the same quiet grief her father wore. She and Vivian connected immediately over losses that had shaped them. Emma's mother to cancer, Vivian's parents to a rainstorm and an 18-wheeler, her athletic identity to ambition and fear. Stephen's method looked deceptively simple. Balance exercises drawn from pilot training. Standing on one leg with eyes closed, feeling center of gravity shifts the way pilots feel aircraft response to control inputs. Mental visualization of successful movement before attempting it. Within 3 days, Vivian's pain reduced by 30%. She texted Stephen at midnight. For the first time in 2 years, I feel like maybe this isn't permanent. Dr. Hendricks observed with increasing skepticism. Captain Owen, I appreciate your enthusiasm, but rehabilitation science is more complex than aviation mechanics. I'm not trying to replace your expertise, Stephen said respectfully. I'm just trying to help her trust her body again. Trust doesn't heal torn ligaments. No, but it helps people remember how to use the healed ones. Day 10 shattered the fragile progress. Vivian attempting a light jog on the treadmill, moving cautiously but steadily, then suddenly freezing, not from pain but from memory. She screamed and collapsed, hyperventilating, knee structurally fine but psychologically broken all over again. "I can't," she sobbed. "Every time I try to push, I see myself falling." Jenny's panic was immediate. "That's enough, Captain Owen. We're done here." Dr. Hendricks looked vindicated. "I warned you. You've traumatized her further." Stephen felt the failure like physical weight. "Vivian, I'm so sorry. I pushed too hard." "It's not your fault," Vivian said through tears. "It's mine. I'll never be fixed." That night, sitting in his Honda outside the medical building, Stephen answered Emma's call with his head in his hands. "I made it worse, Emma. I thought I could help, but I just reminded her of what she lost." "Dad, remember what you told me after Mom died? You said grief isn't linear. Neither is healing. Your mother would know what to say right now." "I don't." "Yes, you do," Emma said firmly. "You say the same thing you said to me. We don't give up on people we care about." At 2 a.m., Vivian's text arrived. "Captain Owen, I'm sorry I fell apart. Dr. Hendricks says we should stop. My grandmother agrees. But I don't want to give up. Please tell me we're not done." Stephen responded immediately. "We're not done unless you decide we're done. But we need to change approach. This isn't about your knee. It's about your fear." Week 2 shifted from physical to psychological, trauma processing, fear hierarchy exposure, sessions where Vivian finally spoke about the injury day in excruciating detail. "I remember Grandma screaming. I remember thinking, I can't let her down. But mostly, I remember the look on her face when she realized what happened. Like I'd broken her." "Vivian, you didn't break her," Stephen said quietly. "She broke herself by putting that pressure on you. And she's been trying to buy forgiveness ever since. But you can't buy what has to be given freely. How do I forgive her when I haven't forgiven myself?" Stephen shared his own journey through guilt after Sarah's death. Every missed appointment, every unnoticed symptom, the crushing weight of responsibility for something beyond his control. "It wasn't until Emma told me, 'Dad, Mom wouldn't want you carrying this,' that I realized guilt isn't honoring the person we lost. Living is." Day 18 brought the second collapse. Vivian pushing through psychological barriers successfully, moving with more confidence than she'd shown in months. Then her hip, compensating for 2 years of improper gait, seized with violent muscle spasm. She hit the floor crying, "It's not just my knee. My whole body is broken." Dr. Hendricks stepped between Stephen and her patient. "Mrs. Campbell, I'm formally recommending we cease Captain Owen's involvement. This is beyond his expertise." Jenny looked at Stephen with exhausted desperation. "Maybe she's right. Maybe she is," Stephen acknowledged. "I'm not a doctor, but I know what giving up looks like, and this isn't it. This is what progress looks like when you're healing something that's been broken for 2 years. How can you be sure?" "Because I see my wife and your granddaughter. Sarah kept fighting until the very end. Not because she thought she'd survive, but because she wanted to show our daughter that fighting matters. Vivian's not fighting the injury anymore. She's fighting to remember who she was before you told her who she should be." Day 19, Jenny made her decision. "Captain Owen, I appreciate everything you've tried to do. But I can't watch my granddaughter go through this anymore. We're done." Stephen accepted with quiet dignity. As he gathered his notes, Vivian grabbed his hand. "Don't give up on me. Please. Everyone else has. Don't you give up too." "I'm not giving up. Your grandmother is trying to protect you. That's what people who love you do. But you promised. You promised we'd figure this out." Stephen knelt beside her chair. "No. I promised I'd help you remember why you wanted to run. And Vivian, I think you just did. You want to run because it's who you are, not who she made you. That's the breakthrough." He left them sitting in silence, grandmother and granddaughter separated by years of unspoken pain, finally forced to face what no amount of money or medical intervention could fix. That night, Jenny couldn't sleep in her Highland Park mansion. She found Vivian sitting by the pool at 2 a.m., leg brace discarded on the concrete beside her like an accusation. "Vivian, come inside. It's cold." "I don't want to go inside. I don't want to do anything you tell me to do anymore." The words hung in the night air, sharp and clean. "I'm trying to protect you," Jenny said. "No, you're trying to fix what you broke. But I'm not a company you can restructure, Grandma. I'm a person. And I'm tired of being your guilt project." Jenny sat down heavily on the pool deck, tears streaming. "You think I don't know that? You think I don't see it every time you limp? You think I don't hear you crying at night? I destroyed you, Vivian. And I don't know how to make it right. You can't make it right. You can only accept it and let me move forward. Vivian's voice broke. I don't want to run because it'll make you proud. I don't want to run to prove the specialists wrong. I want to run because when I run, I feel like me. Just me. Not your granddaughter. Not an injured athlete. Just Vivian. And as long as you're trying to fix me, I can't find that person again. What if I stop trying to fix you? Then maybe I can start healing myself. The next morning, Jenny called Stephen. Captain Owen, I owe you an apology. You were right. The problem isn't Vivian's knee. It's me. It's us. It's this whole family trying to go back to before instead of moving forward from here. Mrs. Campbell, healing doesn't happen on anyone's timeline. Not mine, not Dr. Hendricks, not yours. It happens when the person who's been broken decides they're ready to try being whole again. Will you come back? Not to fix Vivian, but to help us be a family again. I'll come back, but on one condition. Vivian has to ask me herself. 20 minutes later, Stephen's phone rang again. Captain Owen, this is Vivian. I'm not calling because my grandmother told me to. I'm calling because you asked me a question no one else has asked. What do I want? And I want to run. Not for Olympic trials. Not for college recruiting. Not for my grandmother. I want to run because it makes me feel alive. Will you help me? Yes. But we're starting completely over. New approach. And this time, your grandmother doesn't get to watch until you're ready to let her. Week 3 began at a public high school track in Richardson. Not Highland Park's private facilities with their professional equipment and observing specialists, just worn rubber lanes and faded paint under open sky. Stephen, Vivian, and Emma arrived at dawn. The new protocol was radically simple. Vivian chose when to push, when to rest, when to stop. No observers, no pressure, no timeline. Emma ran alongside as peer, not trainer. Stephen coached from a single principle. You're not trying to get back to who you were. You're becoming who you're meant to be after this. Day 1, Vivian walked the track without fear. Day 3, she jogged 50 yards without pain. Day 5, she completed 1 full lap, tears streaming the entire way. Day 7, she attempted a sprint for the first time in 2 years. The moment before she launched felt eternal. Terror and hope balanced on a razor's edge. Then she ran. Full sprint, 100 yards, her body remembering what her mind had forgotten. This is what freedom feels like. She collapsed at the finish line, crying and laughing simultaneously. I did it! I did it! I did it! Emma and Stephen wrapped her in their arms. You did it! Stephen called Jenny from the track. Mrs. Campbell, Vivian wants to see you. At the track. Tomorrow morning. Is she running? You'll have to ask her yourself. Jenny Campbell, who had bought everything money could purchase, was about to receive something no amount of wealth could buy. A second chance. Saturday morning arrived with the kind of Texas clarity that makes everything feel possible. Jenny drove herself to Richardson High School. No driver, no assistant, no entourage. Stephen's instructions had been explicit. No entourage. No doctor. Just you. She found Vivian stretching on the track, wearing her old uniform from before the injury. The sight broke something open in Jenny's chest. Vivian. Hi, Grandma. Want to watch me run? A small gathering had assembled. Stephen, Emma, a handful of Stephen's pilot colleagues who'd been quietly supporting the process. No Dr. Hendricks, who'd refused to attend. No press, no cameras, just people who cared. Stephen approached Jenny. Mrs. Campbell, before we start, Vivian has something she wants to say. Vivian stood, facing her grandmother directly. Grandma, for 2 years you've been trying to fix my knee. But my knee was never really broken. My spirit was. Because I was running for you, not for me. Today, I'm running for myself. And I need you to understand something. Whether I make it 1 lap or 10, whether I'm fast or slow, whether I ever compete again, I need you to be proud of me just for trying. Not for succeeding. For trying. Can you do that? Jenny's tears fell freely. I've always been proud of you, Vivian. Always. I forgot to tell you that. I'm so sorry. I know. And I forgive you. Now watch me run. Vivian took her position at the starting line. No brace, just running shoes and 2 years of accumulated determination. Stephen called across to her. Remember, you're not running from something. I'm running toward who I want to be. I know. She took a deep breath. First step, steady. Second step, confident. Third step, she was jogging. Fourth step, accelerating. She was running, truly, freely running. Jenny stood frozen, both hands covering her mouth, tears streaming unchecked. Stephen beside her spoke quietly. She's not doing this for you, Mrs. Campbell. But you get to witness it. That's the gift. Emma filmed on her phone, voice breaking with excitement. Dad, look at her go. Vivian completed the first lap, 400 meters without pain, without fear, without hesitation. She didn't stop. Second lap came faster, more confident. Third lap, she wasn't just running. She was flying, her body remembering the pure joy that had drawn her to athletics in the first place. At 300 meters into the fourth lap, Vivian looked across the infield at Jenny and shouted, "Grandma, I'm running." Jenny broke. She ran onto the track, protocol and propriety abandoned. Vivian crossed to meet her, and they collided at the center of the oval in their first standing embrace in 2 years where Vivian wasn't bracing herself for pain. "I'm so sorry, baby. I'm so sorry. I know, Grandma. I know. But look, I can run. I can actually run. You're beautiful. You're so beautiful. And I'm okay. I'm finally okay." From the sideline, Emma turned to her father. "Dad, you did it. You actually did it." Stephen's tears came freely now. "No, sweetheart. She did it. I just reminded her that she could." Emma wrapped her arms around him. "Mom would be so proud of you." "I hope so. God, I hope so." As the small group gathered on the track, Carlos Rodriguez, one of Stephen's pilot colleagues, approached. "Captain, what you did here, this is going to change lives." "I didn't do anything revolutionary. I just listened. That's all anyone needed to do. Listen to what she was actually saying beneath the words." Jenny walked over, composure restored but eyes still red. "Captain Owen, Stephen, I don't know how to thank you. You already have, Mrs. Campbell. You let your granddaughter heal. That's all the thanks anyone needs. I want to compensate you for your time. No, this isn't about money. This is about keeping a promise to my wife. That's all the payment I need." A figure appeared at the track entrance. Dr. Patricia Hendricks stood watching, professional pride visibly battling genuine awe. She walked over slowly. "Captain Owen, I owe you an apology. And more than that, I owe you respect. Whatever you did, it worked when everything we tried failed. I'd like to understand how." "Dr. Hendricks, you treated the injury perfectly. What I did was help her remember why she wanted to heal. That's not medicine. That's just caring." Hendricks nodded slowly. "In 30 years of practice, I've forgotten that distinction. Thank you for the reminder." Within hours, video of Vivian's run had gone viral. Someone had recorded and posted it with the caption, "Miracle at Richardson High. Injured athlete runs again after 2 years." Hundreds of thousands of views. Stephen's phone exploded with messages. Emma showed him the screen. "Dad, you're going viral." Stephen looked overwhelmed. "I just wanted to help one person, Em. One person." "Dad, that's how changing the world starts. One person at a time." Final image. Vivian running laps while Jenny sat on the bleachers beside Stephen, watching not as demanding coach, but as proud grandmother. Stephen whispered to the sky, "Sarah, I did it. I finally did what you asked. I lived. I really lived." 2 weeks later, the video had 5 million views. Stephen's phone never stopped. Messages from families across the country describing similar injuries, same desperation, same failed treatments. Sports medicine programs requested information on what they were calling the Owen Protocol. Local Dallas news ran a feature story. The American Academy of Orthopedic Surgeons took notice. So did the skeptics. Medical establishment divided sharply. Some orthopedic surgeons reacted defensively. "This is dangerous. He has no credentials. One success doesn't validate untrained intervention." The Texas Medical Board opened an inquiry investigating whether Stephen had practiced medicine without a license. Insurance companies raised liability concerns. Dr. Hendricks faced pressure from colleagues. "You're validating a pilot playing doctor." Stephen held a press conference at Richardson High Track, not Jenny's Highland Park mansion, the location choice intentional. "I'm not a doctor. I never claimed to be. I didn't treat Vivian's injury. Her surgeons did that. What I did was help her remember why she wanted to use the knee they'd already repaired. I listened when everyone else was too busy measuring. That's not medicine. That's humanity. And if that's controversial, then maybe we need to reconsider what healing actually means." A reporter pressed, "Captain Owen, are you saying doctors don't care about patients?" "Not at all. I'm saying the system sometimes makes caring harder than it should be. Doctors are overwhelmed. They have protocols, liability concerns, time constraints. I had none of that. I just had time, attention, and a promise to my late wife to help people when I could. Jenny used her influence strategically for the first time in 2 years. She established the Campbell Foundation for Holistic Athletic Recovery, partnering with UT Southwestern Medical Center, focusing on integrating psychological and family systems therapy with traditional sports medicine. She hired Dr. Hendricks as medical director. Hendricks initially refused, then reconsidered. If I can't beat this approach, I might as well help shape it responsibly. Stephen came on as consultant part-time. He still flew full schedule. The American Journal of Sports Medicine requested a case study. Dr. Hendricks co-authored with Stephen, the first collaboration between an orthopedic surgeon and commercial pilot in the journal's history. Peer review was initially skeptical but ultimately published with an editorial. This case challenges us to reconsider the artificial boundaries between physical and psychological healing. Vivian was invited to speak at a sports medicine conference in Boston. She told her story plainly. For 2 years, specialists treated my knee. Captain Owen treated me. Both were necessary. Neither was sufficient alone. If we want to truly heal injured athletes, we have to stop separating the body from the mind, the patient from the person, the treatment from the relationship. Standing ovation. Conference organizers created a new session track, patient-centered recovery models. The Texas Medical Board concluded its investigation. Captain Owen did not practice medicine. He provided motivational support and coaching. No violations found. 3 other families worked with Stephen, always alongside their medical teams. 2 of 3 athletes showed significant improvement. 1 didn't. Stephen was honest about limitations. This isn't magic. It doesn't work for everyone. But it worked for Vivian because she was ready. That's the key. The patient has to be ready. His airline expressed concerns about liability and distraction. The captain's union intervened. Owen's charitable work reflects well on our profession. Stephen reduced consulting to 1 day per week, using vacation days, maintaining his primary focus on flying and Emma. "Dad, you're changing lives," Emma said. "Mom would be so proud." "I'm proud too, Em. But you're still my priority. Always." 6 months later, the foundation had helped 47 families. Not all succeeded, but all reported feeling seen and heard for the first time. Stephen maintained his 1 day per week commitment, still flew full schedule, refused to give up his aviation career. "I'm a pilot who helps people sometimes, not a healer who flies sometimes." That distinction matters. Skeptics remained. Some medical professionals stayed critical. Anecdotal success. Uncontrolled variables. Could harm more than help. Stephen's response remained consistent. They're right to be skeptical. I'm skeptical too. I'm not trying to replace medicine. I'm trying to remind medicine that patients are people first. If that's controversial, so be it. 2 years after Vivian's recovery, Stephen and Emma stood at Sarah's grave. "Mom, we're doing what you asked. We're living. We're helping. We're honoring you by being present for others the way you were always present for us. I hope you're proud. I hope you see what your words set in motion." 2 years after Vivian ran at Richardson High, the Campbell Foundation for Holistic Athletic Recovery had become a thriving program integrated with multiple hospitals across Texas. 200 families served, 73% showing significant improvement when traditional medicine combined with psychological and family therapy. Dr. Hendricks had transformed her entire approach. "I became a better doctor by admitting what I didn't know." Vivian enrolled at Stanford, not as an athlete but as a sports psychology major. Her thesis topic, the role of family dynamics in post-injury athletic recovery. She volunteered with injured youth athletes, telling them, "I understand you in ways therapists can't. I've lived it." Jenny had stepped down as CEO of Campbell Tech, focusing full-time on foundation work. Her relationship with Vivian had been rebuilt on honesty and presence. They maintained weekly no-achievement dinners where they talked about anything except accomplishments, just being together. Jenny told an interviewer, "I spent 40 years building a billion-dollar company. I'd trade it all for the relationship I have with my granddaughter now. Money bought me expertise. Humility bought me her forgiveness." Stephen remained a captain for American Airlines, promoted to senior captain, consulting with the foundation 1 day weekly on Thursdays. Emma, now 17 and applying to colleges, wanted to study occupational therapy. "Dad showed me that helping people is the best way to honor people we've lost." They were closer than ever, survivors who'd become thrivers together. The ripple effects spread wider than anyone anticipated. Dr. Marcus Webb, the flight instructor who'd helped Vivian with performance anxiety, now contracted with the foundation regularly. Carlos Rodriguez volunteered as a mentor for injured athletes with single parents. Richardson High installed a plaque at their track, in recognition of Vivian Campbell's courage and Captain Stephen Owen's compassion, where healing began. American Airlines created an employee program called Beyond the Cockpit, encouraging pilots, flight attendants, and mechanics to mentor youth. Stephen was featured in the launch. Aviation taught me to read instruments. Life taught me to read people. Both skills matter. Emma spoke at the program debut. My dad lost my mom to cancer. He could have let that break him. Instead, he let it shape him into someone who helps others find hope. That's what honoring loss looks like. 1 year later, the circle completed itself at DFW Airport Terminal D, the same location where Stephen had first noticed Vivian. He and Emma were walking through after a Boston flight when Stephen saw a young male athlete limping with a familiar compensatory pattern. Basketball gear, 16 years old, same determination masking despair that Vivian had worn. Stephen almost walked past, running late for his next flight. Then Sarah's voice arrived in his memory. Keep looking for the good you can do. Excuse me, I'm Captain Owen. I couldn't help noticing your gait. Mind if I ask you something? The young man, Tyler Hernandez, responded defensively. I'm fine. I'm sure you are. But I'm a pilot, and we're trained to read movement. And what I'm seeing looks like compensation, not limitation. Does it hurt more when you're trying to prove something, or when you've given up? Tyler froze. How? How did you know? He'd torn his ACL sophomore year. Surgery went fine, but he couldn't play like before. Coaches said he wasn't the same player. College scouts had moved on. Have your doctors checked your psychology as much as your knee? Stephen asked. What do you mean? Sometimes the injury isn't what's holding us back. Sometimes it's the fear that we'll never be who we were. But maybe we're not supposed to be who we were. Maybe we're supposed to become who we're meant to be after. Tears formed in Tyler's eyes. Nobody's ever said that to me. Stephen handed him a foundation card. This is a program that helps athletes like you. It's not magic. It's just people who understand that healing is about more than scans and surgeries. If you're interested, give them a call. Tell them Captain Owen suggested it. Jenny and Vivian arrived at the airport just then, meeting Stephen for their quarterly family dinner, a new tradition. They witnessed the conversation from a distance. Vivian smiled. He's doing it again. That's who he is, Jenny said. That's who he's always been. We were just lucky enough that he saw us. No, Grandma. We were lucky enough that he cared. At the airport restaurant, the four of them gathered, Stephen, Emma, Jenny, and Vivian. Family, not by blood but by choice and circumstance and healing. Dad, Vivian had started calling him that. I saw you with that kid. His name's Tyler. Basketball player. Similar story to yours. Will you help him? If he calls the foundation, I'll try. But I'm just one person, Vivian. Emma touched her father's hand. Dad, you're never just one person. You're proof that one person can make a difference. Jenny cleared her throat. Stephen, I know you won't accept payment for what you did for Vivian. But I want you to know, the foundation has created an endowment in your late wife's name. The Sarah Owen Fund for Compassionate Care. It will ensure we can help families who can't afford treatment. Is that acceptable? Stephen's tears came freely. Sarah would love that. Thank you. They walked through the terminal together afterward. Vivian with barely noticeable limp and confident stride, Jenny arm in arm with her granddaughter, Stephen and Emma side by side. They passed the flight information board showing Stephen's next departure, Dallas to Boston, where he'd met Sarah years ago. Want a ride jump seat to Boston? Stephen asked Emma. You can see where your mom and I met. Really? Yes. As they walked toward the gate, Stephen paused and looked back at the terminal. He whispered to the air, Sarah, I kept my promise. I'm living. I'm helping. And I'm teaching our daughter to do the same. I hope you see us. I hope you're proud. Sunset streamed through terminal windows, warm golden light illuminating everything. In the glass reflection, Vivian appeared as she was now, running free whole. Stephen's voice carried over the final image. My wife once told me that we honor the people we've lost by living more fully, not less. I didn't understand that for a long time, but now I do. This story isn't about me fixing anyone. It's about being present enough to see what someone needs and caring enough to help them find it. That's all healing is. That's all any of us can do. See each other. Really see each other. And refuse to let credentials or protocols or fear stop us from caring. This is not just a story about a pilot, a billionaire, or an injured athlete. This is a story about the most powerful truth in the world. Sometimes the help we need doesn't come from the most qualified person. It comes from the person who cares enough to truly see us. Miracles don't require medical degrees or millions of dollars. They require someone willing to listen, to understand, and to believe in our potential even when we've stopped believing in ourselves. Subscribe for more stories of unexpected heroes, second chances, and the transforming power of genuine human connection. Perhaps the next story will be exactly what you need to hear today. Until then, remember, you don't need credentials to care. You just need to be present. And sometimes that's the greatest gift of all. See you again on another journey.